Prepare to get gas because it's time for the Week in Gear. This week, I'm up there. This week, we've got EVH bottling brown sound into a 15-watt head, Walrus Audio cooking up limited edition ambience, and Fender relic'ing Mexican-made guitars and upsetting guitar players all over YouTube. This episode is sponsored by VOLA guitars. More about that in a bit. Now, let's kick off this week's most exciting gear releases by looking back at something called, checks notes, Gibson Les Paul. Yes, first up, a blast from the past, maybe. Gibson have brought back the Les Paul Custom 70s, back in the core lineup for the first time in 20 years. Spec-wise, we're looking at a mahogany body with a 3-piece maple top, all wrapped in multiply binding. That neck is maple, and with what Gibson call a 70s profile, and of course the volute just behind the nut that screams made in the 70s. On top you've got a bound ebony fretboard with 22 frets and a big block mother of pearl inlay collection that I love. The headstock, it's bound, it's oversized, with the custom split diamond inlay that they borrowed from the Super 400. It's a Les Paul Custom with a 70s flavour. Electronics are also era correct. It's got a set of T-type humbuckers and orange drop capacitors. Hardware is gold across the board as far as the eye can see. Aluminum Nashville Tunematic bridge and aluminum stop bar tailpiece as well. Aluminium or aluminum. Up on that headstock you'll see Grover Rotomatic tuners with top hat knobs and even, attention to detail here Gibson, those very 70s posi lock strap locks. Well done. Finishes are ebony, wine red, tobacco burst and a rather glorious buttercream top. And yes, that's a hard shell case in the box. The price is around 4,000 notes. About what I expected. And something has gone very, very wrong because I looked at the price and thought, that's not so bad. And then really had a double take. So stay away from the keyboard just for a moment because of course 4,000 notes is a heck of a lot of money for a guitar or for anything, almost anything. But I'd put that price automatically through my Gibson filter, which reduces it to real normal people prices in my head. It's a lot of money, and for that price you can pick up an original 70s Les Paul Custom if you shop around. Heck, you don't even need to shop around, there are a bunch of them on Reverb at the moment. Here's a gripe, and not necessarily aimed at Gibson, but what exactly is a 70s neck profile? I looked it up and I think it's thinner towards the nut and thicker towards the body, but I had to look that up, and I don't think that's right. I wish guitar companies would give more description because for me that can literally be the difference between me being interested in a guitar and not giving a monkeys. I have another gripe. Let's put the necks, the specs, the prices aside for one moment. Ignore the fact that Gibson have released yet another Les Paul in 2025 and let's talk about the finishes. My all-time bucket list Gibson Les Paul is a 70s custom, but in a cherry burst with the black pickguard and the black plastics. It just screams guitar at me. I had an Epiphone version years ago. I wish I never sold that, but I've always wanted the Gibson, as many Epiphone players do. Anyway, I found a few vintage ones of those and I really liked them, but never found the one Gibson vintage 70s one that spoke to me. So, I was genuinely excited when I heard that Gibson are bringing back the 70s Les Paul Custom. But the finishes are wrong. They're missing 2 finishes from the lineup. It's a core lineup, and they've done those 4 finishes, but my beautiful cherry burst, and of course the silver burst, which many of you are probably screaming about right now, because that came into being in the 70s Custom. I suspect, nay, I hope and I pray that Gibson is saving these 2 finishes for a little bit later, possibly a limited run, because even though I think the buttercream looks great and the black was necessary, and if I'm honest, I wouldn't kick the tobacco burst out of a case either, and the wine red, well, that could fall into an abyss and I wouldn't care. So yes, nice try Gibson, but not quite. I'm not going to pick on you for releasing another Les Paul. It is great to have the 70s Customs back in the core lineup, especially with the attention to detail on the specs. But as it is, it doesn't quite crack my peanut. The gasometer is stuck pretty firmly at borrow it, which could change dramatically and quickly if Gibson add Cherry Burst with black pickup and guards. Oh, I can't even say it, I'm so excited. Just make the one for me, add that to the finishes, voila, on fire. Now for something a little bit more left field and something I possibly can't pronounce. Walrus Audio's Loom Texture Engine. Let me know how I did in the comments. It seems that Walrus Audio left some spare ambience lying around and decided to pick it all up in buckets and then make it into a pedal. This is a limited run of around 600 units, and it's basically Walrus throwing parts of the slur, the lore, and the fable into a blender and then bottling the results. There are 3 algorithms on tap. Grain Cloud, which is dual granular taps that chop up your signal into glitchy grains. There's Grain Verb, where the grains are taken from inside a reverb tank for big, washy ambience. And the third, Michael Grain. Don't throw the bloody doors at me. There we go. Third mode is Forward Reverse Verb. A forward reverb feeding into a reverse one for proper time-bending textures. Controls are Decay, Filter, Mix, X, which is mode dependent, and Stretch, which changes the global sample rate and makes it all wobbly, and not wobbly, but timey-wimey. The moment foot switch seems to be the real trick though, because you can assign it to, I think, any parameter, and then hold it down to ramp between those values, with glide times of 10 milliseconds, 1 second, or 5 seconds, which is perfect for swells and evolving pads, or just make it sound like the room is melting. Biddle-boo, 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 biddle-boo. There are 3 onboard presets, red, green, and blue, with smooth crossfading between them. That's brilliant, so it doesn't just cut. There's also bypass that can be either tails or hard cut if you want to just chop it. It's mono in, it's mono out, it runs on 9 volts at around 100 milliamps and comes finished in a very nice matte blue chassis with artwork by Emily Ursa. If you're into granular textural sound design, this is basically Walrus's love letter to you. If you don't know any of the words that I've just used in this bit, then just go and buy the Les Paul and play some rock and roll. That's also fine. The Loom is coming in at around 300 notes, which puts it firmly into pedal candy territory rather than a staple meat and potatoes pedal. And unless ambient music is your day-to-day, having played the pedals that were chopped up to build this Loom, I have a lot of time for Walrus Audio and a lot of time for the way this pedal is thought out. I think it's going to be good. For someone out there, this pedal is the key to releasing that solo project album that they never got around to doing. The gasometer is rising up to add to cart. But it seems that Walrus Audio is already sold out on their website, so check the links in my video description if you're interested in getting all dreamy. This episode is sponsored by VOLA guitars. Let's talk about it. Look at the flame on that! The big brands do a great job at keeping their classics alive. But what if you fancy something a little bit different? Something fresh, but still feels familiar. Have a look at this. This is the JZ Fro, the FRO1 from VOLA Guitars. And it's beautiful. It's a great guitar too. The JZ Fro is an offset, but with a slightly smaller body than usual, sort of as big as a Strat. The body's older, the neck is roasted flame maple. Modern C. You also get 22 stainless steel frets, Loom inlay side dots, 3 pickups, a rock solid trem system, and a reverse headstock. So I have the white one because I think it looks stunning, but there are other colors available too. There's shell pink, there's aged copper, there's black, and there's classic sunburst. I've already reviewed the JZ Fro on this channel, but if you've forgotten what it sounds like, listen to this. Now you can only get these at volaguitars.com. There's a link in the video description, and if you use my code, you get free shipping. So go and have a look and see if you fall in love with anything. On with the show. EHX are on a Pico pedal streak, and the new SWELL-O might be their cleverest yet. Certainly a clever name. It's a polyphonic attack envelope, lifted from the POG 2. So every single note swells in, no matter how many you play, which means violin-like leads, ambience, pads, or even smoothing out your picking without needing a volume pedal. Controls are simple. You've got volume for overall output, attack for swell speed, freak sets the cutoff frequency of the built-in low-pass filter, and mod sets the depth and direction of filter modulation. There's also a filter button, which engages the filter and switches resonance settings. And some of those words I didn't understand either, but it's a fun pedal. So what does that all mean? It means fun with swells, like a kind of automated volume pedal with a bit more frills and bells and whistles. But it's not just swells, it's swells with movement. And because it's polyphonic, chords won't get chopped up weirdly like older and other volume swell tricks. I dig this a lot. This is another creative pedal waiting for someone to unlock new music. Maybe it could be me. Nah. The SWELL-O is in the compact Pico chassis. It's true bypass, it runs on 9 volts DC, and for reasons that I still can't quite understand, Electro-Harmonix actually include the power adapter in the box. Thanks. It's out now at around 130 notes, and honestly, this could be one of those sleeper pedals that you see popping up on every ambient board. And I think that price and that size, lots of players who were looking for something slightly different without having to dive into something like a multi-effects or plugins are going to dig this hard. The gasometer, quite simply buy it now. Link's down there. Next up, in at number 2, EVH have gone and bottled the brown sound into a 15-watt head with the brand new 5150 iconic 15-watt EL34 head. Inside, you've got a single lonely EL34 power tube doing the heavy lifting with 2 ECC 83s in the preamp. So yes, this is still proper glass-powered tone, not a modeling toy in a metal box. Looks around for attackers. Continues. It's got 2 channels. There's green, which has an overdrive switch that takes you from your sparkly cleans to your AC/DC-ish crunch. And there's red, with a burn switch that's like jumping off a cliff into a pool of high-gain molten-lava. Relax reminder. Higher than normal stress detected. Start a breathing exercise? No, I'm just excited about gear. Each channel has its own gain and its own volume, so you can balance your clean and dirty without doing spandex amp gymnastics mid-set. It does have a shared 3-band EQ, plus global presence and resonance knobs, meaning that you can dialing chest-thumping thump for some thump, or cut glass with your thighs. I mean highs. But wait, there's more. A 10 dB foot switchable boost for when you need to hit eruption levels of loud. There's built-in reverb, thank you very much, and there's an effects loop for the pedal addicts, possibly for getting ambient. There's also a 1/4 power switch, which basically turns it into a 3.5 watt amp. 7? Yeah, roughly 3.5. Don't get me on the maths there. This is perfect if your neighbors already hate you, and if you're trying to keep it just below getting into a fist fight. Right in the back, you've got dual speaker outs, so you can run a couple of cabs if you feel like being extra, plus a speaker emulated DI with a power amp mute. Translation, you can go straight to a PA or interface and still sound like you've dragged a wall of EVH 4x12s onto the stage without needing a chiropractor. Does it sound good? I don't know. At 15 watts, this isn't just a bedroom amp, because 15 watts is still potentially loud. This is a legit rehearsal, recording, and even small gig machine. Price? Well, about the sort of 600 notes mark, which is a bit more expensive than what you might pay for a lesser known brand, but I think this amp is going to tick a lot of boxes for a lot of people. Gasometer? Honestly, add to cart if you want Van Halen tones without blowing out your windows or your dog's eardrums and your bank balance all at once.
Andy's Pick of the Week.
And finally, my pick of the week. Not to let Gibson be the only ones rehashing old formats with a slight twist, Fender have decided that Vintera 2 line wasn't quite vintage enough, so they've hit it with the road-worn treatment, and this has upset a lot of people. Oh dear.
This is fake. This is phony. Relic guitars are for losers. What? They're charging us more to damage it for us? Puh. Rubbish!
This limited edition run takes the already vintage spec Vintera 2 guitars and gives them nitro finishes, hardware aging, and that whole being gigged for 40 years but somehow still smells new vibe. The lineup covers pretty much every corner of classic Fender history. You've got a 60s Stratocaster in Sonic Blue or black. It's an older body, 60s C neck, slab rosewood board, 7 1/4 inch radius, vintage tall frets, and bent steel saddles. Basically, all the sparkly, quacky stratness and snap you'd expect. There's also the 60s Telecaster, which is rocking burgundy mist or blonde finishes, with the same vintage neck radius and era-voiced pickups. It's twang, just with a few scars thrown in for good measure. The 60s precision bass for our low-end friends, aged in charcoal mist metallic or Fiesta red, with that thumpy, familiar P-bass punch. This is going to sound odd, but when I first saw that charcoal mist metallic, my heart actually almost, I felt it go, oh, and it nearly skipped a beat. And I don't know what that means, but that bass there could very easily find its way into my life. The Bass Geek. Oh dear. But the star of the show for me and unseemingly most of my fellow YouTubers, the 50s Jazzmaster in Fiesta Red or 3-color Sunburst, complete with that anodized gold guard. I've got one here. I'm going to get it to show you. Alright, let's zone in on this Jazzmaster for a moment, because I've had lots of issues with Fender Jazzmasters of late, in fact pretty much forever, and this one, at least for me, does everything the others didn't, even the ones that were twice the price. Spec-wise, it's pure offset goodness. You've got an older body, late 50s C maple neck, which is a bit sticky still. Oh no, it's less sticky now. Slab rosewood board, 7 1/4 inch radius with vintage tall frets. Pickups are vintage style Jazzmaster single coils with the full rhythm lead circuit business going on. And of course, you get that vintage floating tremolo that makes me and shoegaze kids weak at the knees. And surfers as well. And it works. Like, shockingly. I was so surprised at how good this is. If you haven't seen the review yet, there's a card up there, you can click it. Anyway, on to the nitro finish. It is road worn, but if you just look at it, it doesn't look damaged, does it? Until you turn it around, and then you can see the sort of bits on the neck. The whole road wornness has added cost on top of the Vintera 2 series, but I have to say that I think it's absolutely worth it. To the point where Fender might have shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because if the Strat and the Tele and the P-Bass perform as well as this Jazzmaster, then I don't think you need to go higher in price, unless you're looking for something special or something specific. If you're just looking for a Fender guitar, I think this might be the best they've made so far, recently. Speaking of money, the Jazzmaster is more expensive than the Strat and the Tele, and I know I'm talking a lot about the Jazzmaster, but if you're in the market for a Fender, Strat or Tele, you owe it to yourself to at least try this limited edition Vintera 2 road worn range. I think these are going to be looked back at as a very high point for Fender. As for being made in Ensenada, in Mexico, in this case, I don't see this being any less than or a negative point. This Jazzmaster came out of the box better set up and better sounding than some of the American Fenders I've played recently. And if someone put one of these guitars in your hands, I don't think you could tell it wasn't American. On that point, I don't think country of origin matters anymore, or it matters very little these days. This is a great guitar. Now, because this is a series, I've got to go for a sort of price range, but the road-worn limited edition Vintera 2 series starts at around 1,300-ish notes, with the Jazzmaster being a bit more expensive, and the P-Bass, but the Jazzmaster at least for the right reasons. Gasometer, wish list, if you can't quite stretch that far at the moment. But because these are limited edition and very special, this could be the best range Fender offer for the next few years, at a price that is not cheap, but could have been twice as much had they not been made in Mexico. If you have the money, this is absolutely wallet on fire. It's fantastic, and I want to try the Strat, and I might want to buy the P-Bass. Okay, put that down. It's time for thanks. Thank you to these people who support the show on Patreon. Hello. And these people support the show right here on YouTube. Hello to you as well, and thank you so much. And here's a special thanks to the top tier members with some new names. Alinta, Antonio Cruz Barreto, Buddha Blue, Boom Shakalaka, Buzzle, Dirk, Doug Paget, Yendrik Strauka, Johnny McBadminton, Mike Lute, Andrew Morgan, Gary O'Neill, holy moly, that's 8675309, Josh Tamberg, Man Dude Bro, PQ Deads, Robin Kelly, I'm not gonna make it. I failed. Sarang Narayan, Scott Sembach, and Southern Panda 33. Thank you, top tier members. Shame. If you're not supporting the show on YouTube or on Patreon, I hope you enjoy the show anyway, and you drop a like or comment your pick of the week to let me know if you think I got it right this week or not. And if I'm wrong, then why am I wrong in your opinion? I'm at Guitar Summit in Germany next week, so if you happen to be there, please come along and say hello. I will be going live on the channel at some point, so I hope to see you around. Bye-bye. The moment, foot switch, you switch the feet.